Welcome to the Daily Recap. Elon Musk has been quietly using SpaceX, a company that depends on billions in government contracts, as his own personal financial toolkit. We are talking loans, bailouts, and sweetheart deals that kept his other businesses alive while taxpayers footed the bill. So the question is simple. How does the richest man in the world get away with using a rocket company as his personal piggy bank? Here is what the New York Times found after a deep examination of SpaceX's financials and internal records. SpaceX provided Elon Musk with personal loans. Not small ones either. We are talking hundreds of millions of dollars in loans that Musk used for personal expenses and to prop up his other ventures. At one critical moment, SpaceX extended a loan to Musk that helped him fund his chaotic 2022 acquisition of Twitter, now rebranded as X. That deal cost $44 billion, and Musk scrambled to pull together funding from multiple sources. SpaceX was one of them. It does not stop there. When Tesla was in serious financial trouble back in 2008, SpaceX resources and personnel provided critical support that helped stabilize the company. Musk has long positioned these businesses as entirely separate, but the reality is far messier. The lines between SpaceX, Tesla, X, and Musk's personal finances are blurry at best and deliberately obscured at worst. SpaceX also hired Tesla engineers and shared operational infrastructure in ways that benefited Tesla without clear compensation flowing back to SpaceX. Employees sometimes found themselves working across both companies simultaneously. The Times found that SpaceX's board, which is supposed to act as an independent check on Musk, is stacked with loyalists who have rarely pushed back on these arrangements. This is a private company, so there are no public shareholders demanding answers, no quarterly earnings calls where journalists can grill executives. SpaceX operates almost entirely out of public view despite receiving enormous sums of government money. You might be thinking, okay, a billionaire played financial games with his own companies. Why should I care? Here is why this story is enormous. SpaceX is not some scrappy startup running purely on venture capital. It is a company that has received over $15 billion in NASA contracts alone. It holds massive deals with the Department of Defense. It is launching satellites for the United States military. It is ferrying American astronauts to the International Space Station. This company is deeply embedded in critical national infrastructure, and it is being run like a personal slush fund for one man. When a company that relies on government contracts uses those resources to benefit its CEO's personal finances and other private ventures, that raises serious questions about conflicts of interest. The money flowing into SpaceX from federal contracts ultimately comes from taxpayers. That is your money. And if that money is being indirectly used to bail out Twitter or support Tesla's rocky early years, that is something the public deserves to know about. There is also a competitive fairness issue here. Tesla, for example, competes in the electric vehicle market against companies like Rivian, Ford, and GM. If Tesla received indirect subsidies through SpaceX that its competitors did not have access to, that distorts the market. Other entrepreneurs who did not have a rocket company to lean on had to survive on their own terms. And think about what this means for corporate governance more broadly. Musk sits at the top of a web of companies where he can essentially move resources around without independent boards stopping him. SpaceX's board includes his brother Kimball Musk and other close allies. There is no meaningful oversight. If something similar happened at a publicly traded company, regulators would be involved immediately. Because SpaceX is private, the normal guardrails do not apply in the same way. This story also matters in the context of Musk's growing political influence. He now runs the so-called Department of Government Efficiency under the Trump administration, with a mandate to cut federal spending. A man who has personally benefited from federal contracts is now deciding which government programs get funded and which get cut. That conflict could not be more direct. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to the early 2000s when Musk founded SpaceX in 2002 with the leftover fortune he made from selling PayPal. From the very beginning, SpaceX and Tesla were sister companies in everything but name. Musk was running both simultaneously. He was recruiting from the same talent pools, sharing facilities in the early days, and moving money between ventures when things got tight. The 2008 financial crisis nearly killed both companies at the same time. SpaceX had just experienced 3 consecutive rocket failures. Tesla was burning cash faster than it could raise it. Musk himself said publicly that he was nearly broke. It was in this crucible that the intermingling of resources between his companies became a survival mechanism. It worked, and the habit stuck. SpaceX's relationship with NASA supercharged everything. The Commercial Crew program gave SpaceX credibility and cash. Starlink, SpaceX's satellite internet business, became a massive revenue generator. Suddenly, SpaceX was not just surviving. It was the most valuable private company in America, recently valued at around $350 billion. With that financial power came leverage. And Musk, who has always operated as if the rules apply to everyone else, used that leverage in ways that are only now becoming visible to the public. So where does this go from here? Congressional Democrats have already started making noise about demanding investigations. Given Musk's current role in the federal government, there are legitimate oversight questions that Republican-led committees will face pressure to address as well. Regulatory scrutiny is a real possibility. The SEC has jurisdiction when financial arrangements affect public companies like Tesla. If SpaceX loans or resource transfers materially benefited Tesla without proper disclosure, that is a potential securities law issue. Experts in corporate governance say the most likely short-term outcome is louder calls for SpaceX to go public, which would force far greater transparency. Musk has resisted this because going public means losing control, but political and regulatory pressure could change that calculation. The story is also not finished. The Times investigation signals that more documents and sources are likely to surface. Whistleblowers inside SpaceX have already been talking. Here is the bottom line. Elon Musk built an empire by blurring the lines between his companies, using SpaceX as a financial lifeline while collecting billions in government contracts. Now he is one of the most powerful figures in Washington. The conflict of interest does not get bigger than that. That is your daily recap. If this story matters to you, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss what is actually happening.